I got the mayor to finally sit down and I'm gonna go ahead and get started. Welcome to the Coastal Mesa Sanitary District for our quarterly liaison meeting. Go ahead and call it to order, and the first item is roundtable introductions. So I'm gonna start with Paul Schoenberg. Oh, could you just verify? Right there. Thank you very much. Paul Schoenberg, General Manager at Mesa Water District.
Go, Fred Bachmiller, Director of Division 1, Mesa Water District, from the west side. Those are the perfect. That's
Shelley Humphrey, Director of Transportation. Actually, and then we start paying class, you want to take that. Crystal Wagon, we formed that New Beautified for President. Before she was a citizen, superintendent, before we say that.
Morning, everyone. West Smith, Newport Mesa Unified.
The Prayer, Newport Mesa Unified Assistant Superintendent.
Nicole Wilshire, Director of West Smith Commissioner.
I'm Bob Boone, and I got a promotion. I used to be the vice secretary, but after I took the ethics training, now I'm the service.
I'm happy. Dan Stefano, Fire Chief for the City of Costa Mesa. I'm John Stevens, I'm the Mayor of Costa.
Carlos Reynolds, City Council Member on the west side.
Mark Healy, City Council Member, to the Quality.
Hi, I'm Cecilia, our daily assistant city manager, City of Costa Mesa.
Mark, go ahead.
Mark Esker, District Engineer, Costa Mesa Sanitary District.
Political Director, Costa Mesa.
Rob Tower, Media Relations Manager, City of Costa Mesa. David Hickok, President of the Chamber of Commerce. Brian Gruner, Parks and Community Services Director of the City of Costa Mesa.
Jay Rockman, Government Affairs Manager, City of Costa Mesa.
Michael Tone, District Director, Assemblywoman, County Commissioners.
Jason File, Assistant Fire Chief, Costa Mesa.
Are you just from the public or are you?
I'm part of the public.
Then you know what, you're the most valuable person.
I, go ahead, the Commissioner. Dave Hackey, that's Planning Commissioner for the west side.
I'm Mike Schaefer, Board President of the Sanitary District. Public comments, this is time for public comments. See a lot of public, so I guess we're okay with that. Let's go right to our discussion items, and we'll lead off from the Costa Mesa Sanitary District. And what I'll do is turn it over to our General Manager, Scott Carroll, and he will cover the items for the sanitary.
Thank you, Mr. President. So most of you by now probably should have received your e-cards. Please announce that we're officially source separating our solid waste materials. So items are typically separated in the blue bin for recyclables, organics, which is food waste, green waste in the green bin, and then that trash in the black bin. So over 23,000 carts, new carts were successfully delivered in the community, and we did receive a few complaints. Most of those complaints were regarding wrong size carts, or sometimes they take all the carts away. But overall, was very successful, and we're hopeful that it'll help us a little bit closer to achieving 75% conversion. I do have some handouts for you. There's always questions with one of those in the blue card, one of those in the gray card, so there's a nice little handout for you to kind of remind you what goes in the cards. I think one of the biggest confusions, and actually might kind of changed recently, is in the past we had soiled like cardboard boxes from pizza box, you want to put that trash. Now you put that in organics. So you have to soil paper, another piece I like, if you want to make those Chipotle, you get those bowls, right? Those are compostable bowls, put that right in organic there, right? So, I think that's kind of the challenge we're facing, that a little bit change here, what we're doing green waste in. So we're hoping, these changes will help us get to, some closer to the conversion. So, have any questions you have? All right. Thank you, Mr. President. So I talked about this before. I think about 6 months ago, we talked about a critical sewer replacement we're doing on South Coast Plaza. And I remember the last time we talked about it, Director Bachman mentioned, well, why are we doing a public project on private property? And it was a really good question. I didn't have an answer, and I had to do some research. And I did find some minutes back in 1966 when it was approved. Unfortunately, didn't really give me information why the board approved it. Probably I might be the best decision, but what they did, and but there's the reason I put this on here is believe it or not, it's still one of the most challenging projects we've ever worked on, and I've asked our district engineer to do brief presentations. All the issues we've been dealing with. The good news is that there is light in the tunnel. We do believe that the work can be done by the first week of February. But I've asked Mark, as our district engineer, to give a little presentation about the project and the challenges we face for this replacing this sewer main. So Mark, would you take it away?
Thank you, Mr. Carroll, for that introduction, and thank you, Liaison Committee, for allowing me to share this very large and important project, at least for our agency. 6 months ago, as Scott said, we shared this project with you, and at that point in time, we thought we could do a non-dig method to rehabilitate the pipeline and get this job completed pretty quickly and with minimal impact. We plan to put a liner pipe into the existing sewer pipe that serves South Coast Plaza. But due to many factors, including the depth of water, groundwater, and the external pressure from that groundwater, this approach really didn't work. And in fact, we had a catastrophic failure back in August when we tried to attempt doing the industrial cleaning and installing the lining. And so at that point in time, the district had to declare an emergency. We put in emergency bypass pumps to help us get sewage from South Coast Plaza to our system while we figure out how to do what we needed to do, which was replace a sewer that was about 16 feet underwater. Anyway, it was reported to us that normal day next go back one slide. Sorry, forward one slide. Now, it was reported to us the normal day sales over South, this is South Coast Plaza, and we're in the northeasterly corner of the south parking structure, and it was reported to us by South Coast Plaza that typical day or normal day generates sales of about $8 million. During the holiday season, which we just finished up about 3 weeks ago, they generate somewhere in the neighborhood of $30 to $35 million a day in sales. I'm not sure what the revenue is to the mall. I don't understand the tax implications, but I'm sure they're very important revenue for the city of Costa Mesa and our community. So this was a very prominent customer for us, and we wanted to make sure that we coordinated with them and we worked with them through this holiday season. Next picture, please. The next. Okay. This is in front of Tiffany's. We're facing, I'll say, southeast. This is the south parking structure, northeast corner of the south parking structure. And this is kind of, the picture's a little deceiving because we had to use a little wide angle, but it's a very, very narrow area. You can barely drive a truck through this corner of the mall. It's kind of an alleyway where deliveries come in to provide goods and materials for the various merchants in the mall. And we're next to Tiffany's, as you know, is a very high-end seller of jewelry, watches, and high-end gifts. And Tiffany's is down that white front store is the back end of or the non-mall entrance to Tiffany's next to that south parking structure. Next slide, please. Our pump station is tucked into the very corner of that parking structure. And in fact, back in when this pump station was built, there was not much there, including this parking structure. And so this 5-story parking structure was built, I'll say, literally around our pump station. Our facilities include our pump station and that manhole that's down in the lower portion of the photo, and that red line represents the sewer, literally 16 feet of sewer pipe that had a catastrophic failure, and we have to dig down and replace. Slide. Just to give you a picture, to dig down, 20 some odd feet in order to replace our pipeline We have to excavate this entire area that's in red, which when you add a large excavator, drill rigging, drill rigs, pile driving rigs, everything that we need to do, there's not a lot of room left over. Unfortunately for South Coast Plaza, they'd asked us if we could in any way leave a path for deliveries to be made, but when we looked at the site, we just couldn't do that, and we had to close down, and we have closed down the entire corner right there. Next slide. Before we were doing routine CCTV work, and this is what we saw in the camera. You'll see in the very back, down that tunnel, this is our 8-inch sewer. Looks a little bigger on video, but that's basically a hole in our pipe, and that's the water squirting completely across the pipeline in the very back end. We had about 4 or 5 leaks in this pipeline, and the bottom portion of the pipe is being corroded. And that's what was leading to the failure of this pipe and why we were hoping to line it.
That cast iron or cement board like.
It's ductile iron, it had epoxy coating on it, but after 30 some odd years, and the hydrogen sulfide and the sulfuric acid that's formed based on moisture and that particular material, it just ate the inside of the epoxy lining and the ductile iron pipe away. That little white thing is a patch that we did. There was a much larger hole in this pipeline, and we were able to successfully patch it, and that bought us a little bit of time in order to do some work on this project. Next slide. Okay, here's our work plan. Basically, we were hoping to do this work in about 5 to 7. The work that we need to do is basically to coordinate with South Coast Plaza because of the impact to revenues, restocking the merchants during the holiday. We had to work very closely with South Coast Plaza, and we basically had weekly meetings, and I coordinated with them throughout the week, each week while we were doing the plan for this work. We had to lay out our work plan. We hired a district consultant and a contractor to coordinate and kind of lay things out with South Coast Plaza. Some of the things that we needed to plan and not completely design is 12 to 14 wells. We were planning to install a small coffer and then we basically excavate down once those are in place and replace our sewer pipe. And then once we put the pipe, get the sewer pipe and restore wastewater flow for the South Coast Plaza, then we're gonna have to restore the site. Why wait? We found the pipe failed in August, and why wait? Because we have September and October, maybe even part of November before the holiday season. Well, with designing watering wells in order to drop that water level about 16 feet and make it so that we can get down to our pipeline, we would have had to do somewhere between 9 and 12 months of design work. So how do we get that done and get this project started? So we sort of compromised. Thanks to our board, they allowed our general manager to declare an emergency. We hired the contractor on an emergency basis. He came highly recommended from the city of Newport Beach, who uses him exclusively to do a lot of their emergency work. He's done emergency work and project work at Fashioned Island. He has done many dewatering projects, Lido Isle, Balboa Peninsula. He's done work for Orange County Sanitation, Newport Beach, Multnomah McGill Water District. I think he's done some work for the city of Anaheim, and he came very highly recommended. And because of the criticality of this project, we elected to go with this particular contractor. He hired 2 subs, Griffin Dewatering, one of the largest, in fact, they are the largest dewatering contractor, well drilling contractor in California. And he hired Blue Iron Foundation to help us with the coffer dam work. We also hired Converse Soils to do the geotechnical, and then RBH and Associates to perform our engineering work. So we had to get all this planning done, coordinate with the city, coordinate with Mesa Water, all in three weeks. So that, we can get things ready to go, prepare for them all, and then start our work on January 6th. This is a picture of the test wells that we drilled this past November. We had to drill 3 wells. And what we do with those 3 wells is we install a pump in one of them. We start up that pump and we pump as much water as we can. What we do is we take the other 2 wells and monitor the water level. And we do that so that we can figure out how much water can a well pump. How much the water, how much one pump can drop the water level. And then we measure that at 2 or 3 locations. The engineers that work for Griffin Dewatering, they put that in their models and they basically tell us then how many wells, how deep do they need to go, and how big a pump do we need. Think of the water level, it's about 6 to 9 feet, depending on where you drill on this site. It was amazing to me how varied the water level is just in a little postage stamp site that we have there. But think of this, we gotta drop the water, it's 6 feet below grade, and we gotta drop it 16 feet. One well, what it does is, think of in your kitchen sink, when you pull the drain, it's full of water, you pull the drain and it creates a vortex, and it's kind of a funnel shaped water level. That's exactly what this dewatering well does for the groundwater at this location. So the model then, the computer model tells the engineers how many wells that we need, and they determined that we need basically 13 or 14 wells, 50-foot deep, located on the same site. Next slide, please. Starting January, we mobilized, and this is us starting to drill the well site. That's a 55-foot tall well rig. It's about 24 foot long, and compared to the person just to the right of it, that shows you how big a drill rig we had to get onto our site. We had to move our bypass pumps out of the way, bring up some backup power, and we had loaders, dump trucks, all kinds of things out on that side, work site. Next slide, please. Once we got done installing the wells, this is our pile driver. This rig is 90 tons. It takes a special permit to transport it across the country and within California. We had a Caltrans permit to bring it in on Monday. I can't remember the date now, but it's probably the 12th or the 13th of January. And we did successfully get this thing brought in. It's 70 foot tall, 90 tons, and we had to get it into the job site and onto this location. It's vibratory, so it's hydraulic. Yeah. You see, we pushed 3 piles in, shoring or piles in by this time. Shortly after this picture was taken, we then hit all kinds of underground obstructions that were unknown in that location, and it delayed us for about, I'm gonna say, we got between delays in dewatering and delays with clearing out the obstructions, we had about a 4-day or 5-day delay in our construction schedule. We worked with South Coast Plaza, and they allowed us to work around the clock. It was a benefit because if any of you, and it sounds like some of you have experience with vibratory installation of piles, a lot of vibration. While it doesn't do a lot of disturbance, it does, the customers can feel the vibration, and some people are very uncomfortable by that. And so by drilling the piles at night or installing the piles at night, we were able to do that, and then the well people were able to install their well piping during the day. So by working around the clock, I think we're going to be caught up and back on schedule by Monday. Next slide, please. What's this cost? Just the work between August and December, we spent about $400,000 on test wells, soils and geotechnical work, engineering work, everything that we needed to do so that we could go on January 6th. The coffer dam is going to cost us somewhere in the neighborhood of about $220,000. With drilling 14 wells in that tight space and everything that we needed to do. We're looking at a little under $800,000, and it's just once we get that done, we dig down, we replace our sewer pipe, and that's another $300,000 to install that pipe and restore the site. Next slide. I guess I'd like to thank the City of Costa Mesa, because we have had an impact on the police department. Your substation is literally right adjacent to our site, and so we kind of had to blow out a little bit of the parking. It isn't as convenient, but you've been very accommodating. Fire department, I'd like to thank you because we had to provide access to fire suppression systems, fire valves, and other things associated with the 5-story parking structure and the mall. We did have to shut down the fire water system for about a day. So, coordination with the mall and fire department, there was fire watch being done. All that just all came together very nicely. We have experienced some delays, but with the help of South Coast Plaza and their flexibility, allowing us to work 24 hours a day, because they generally don't let construction occur during daytime hours. The project has been successful to date, even though we've experienced some delays. I think we're going to be completed somewhere in the neighborhood of February 2nd, I'll say more or less. And I just want to thank everybody for your help understanding on this project. One more note or heads up. Our agency has started the design and will be completed with the design of a $8 to $10 million 18-inch force main project that has to go, I'll say, northwesterly on Mesa Drive, across the State Route 55 to Newport Boulevard next to the State Fairgrounds. It'll go south to Fair Drive, then across towards City Hall, and then the project ends at the main entrance of the fairgrounds. I've given you the heads up because it's going to be a very, very large project for us. We're going to impact Caltrans, we're going to impact the fairgrounds, we'll be impacting the city roadways. So we're going to have to do a large amount of coordination with everyone. I'm planning to bring, in the next month, I'll be bringing the traffic closure plans to the city public works, fire department, and police department for their preliminary reviews. I'm not asking for any formal reviews, but I want to give you a heads up because we will have major closures, including the Fair Drive off-ramp from the southbound SR 55, which impacts many off-ramps, believe it or not. It's a very, very large outage, and it's going to have that down for a long period. I'm going to say a month or two anyway, that off-ramp. So with the design being prepared this summer, we will bring that to you. Once that we worked everything out with the city, the water district, Caltrans, we probably have about 14 to 18 months of construction. So we're going to have a couple of, I'll say, hiatus while the fair operates. There is a fair moratorium. I know that's a very important activity for our community, and so we definitely have and will be working around that. So just a heads up, this is coming at you here probably very quickly within the next year. So we will be working with all of you on that particular project. Thank you very much. With that, I'll accept any questions or provide you with any information on either of those topics. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. It's an excellent presentation. Ms. Carroll, thank you for answering my question. I'm very curious how that happened. I suspect influence of influential people at the time. And now a couple of questions. What kind of pipe are you putting back in?
We're gonna put in PVC pipe. It's a thicker schedule PVC pipe, so it's structurally be stronger and basically shouldn't corrode. But we're gonna over excavate. We're gonna add about 2 feet of and recompact the base. We'll probably put some geofabric down there, and we're gonna reinforce that pipeline as best we can.
Sounds good. So it's akin almost a water main pipe.
Yes, exactly.
You did not mention the name of this great contractor.
I do basically what you do for the city of UC Irvine, and we are always looking for good contractors, so we give you the name of all the contractors, we have work just like this, that we need to do. Sure.
It's T.E. Roberts,
D.E. Roberts.
T.E. Roberts,
We just did get it.
yeah, and we will, I'll work with Nalani, our PIO, to provide you guys with the contact information of all of the contractor and the subcontractor and our consultant on this. I will say they really mobilized very quickly, and I'm very impressed with what we were able to accomplish over the 3 months before we started the construction work.
No, they do seem to have done an excellent job of that, your cost estimate was refreshingly low. I was impressed.
Yeah, we thought initially it's gonna be closer to $2 million, but I will say, the thing that impresses me quite. And I'm glad we married up with T.E. Roberts on this project is 2 things. One, their willingness to do value engineering, suggest things that are out of the box, and with their level of experience and what they've done, they've been able to help us reduce our costs. And even when we ran into all these obstacles, they mobilized different types of equipment and really helped us stay on top of things. So I highly recommend this contractor. They work hand in glove with your staff, so if you have an emergency, like I said, they're the exclusive emergency contractor for the city of Newport Beach, and I see why now. Very, very good contractor.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys. Never let an engineer have a mic. Thank you, Mark. Very about it.
Okay, thank you, Mr. President. So, item number 3, maybe you've already saw the paper there is in the paper, but the good news is that, our beloved, OCC Recycling Center is now reopened to the public. It was open to the public last Wednesday, so that was great news, and, I do want to give a shout out and thank you to, from Assemblywoman North's office, who really helped keep colleagues like feet to the fire, making sure that third party operator application was processed. That third party operator is OC Recycling, who operates recycling facilities around the county. I know they're trying to reach out to all of the community leaders. They do want to do a grand opening or another ribbon cutting ceremony to recognize the reopening of the center. I don't think the date's confirmed yet, so just gotta look out. I know they're trying to reach out and email all the leaders here in the community. So the good news, the center is back up and running. And very much very appreciate that. We want to share
that. That is really good news because now I can get all the cans that are all in my backyard from the winds. Back over to OCC funding. I neglected something I wanted to do, and I really would like to welcome our 2 newest electeds. This is their very first liaison meeting, and hopefully they'll come back for more. From our district, Nicole Wilshire, newly elected director. The council member from Division 1, Mike Dooley. Thanks, Mike. Thanks for getting to do that earlier. But I was waiting on here. Okay, City of Costa Mesa, you're up. The red is on.
I turned it on, that is perfect. Well, thanks for having us today. We were, obviously with the devastating fires, up in LA, we were asked to come and speak about infrastructure. Some of the first calls that we received were about, hey, our water supply in place? And so we've been in touch with Paul. You're gonna get a nice presentation from Paul. But it is always an opportunity for us to take a look at what are we doing, where are we at, are we solid with what we have resource wise? So from a water perspective, and Paul in detail, we're as solid as can be. There's always room for gas to take a look at, what are the different circumstances. As a brief background for me, I've been with the city 11 years. Before I was here, I was in Laguna Beach for 18 years. And I worked through a number of different disasters from wildfires to landslides, mudslides. I've been on numerous strike team assignments up and down the state. So an extensive background, my leadership team has about 150 years of leadership experience in the fire world. So just as a little background in terms of that infrastructure, which is the most important piece of our personnel, and what we're doing to train them. But in terms of the water infrastructure solid, in terms of the resources that we have in the city, we have 6 fire stations. The city council has really embraced the value and importance of public safety. And I think, as elected officials, it's always one that's at the top of the list. It's another to back that up, and the city council really reinforced that with our infrastructure, and that includes all of our fire apparatus, it includes our fire facilities. We have a new fire station, that's now approaching 5 years in place, for Fire Station 1. We have another Fire Station 2 that's about to be rebuilt. We've got a new training tower that's coming in, so that infrastructure for us has been solid. Our fire apparatus was another question we received, hey, do we have enough engines? We do have enough fire apparatus. In fact, over the course of the past 10 years, we partnered with the state of California, and we were assigned over that period of time 3 additional state engines. Those are Cal OES engines that are assigned to specific departments. Some departments don't have any, some departments might have 1, we have 3. And so again, we're very fortunate. We staff those engines, we're reimbursed by the state, and that's how that works. And then, so as far as the apparatus piece, we're very solid with the city. In terms of preparedness, and this is really what the question comes down to, a conversation with the council, constantly asks about this, how we're prepared. We're talking about wildfires now, this atmospheric river, they sound, anyone, how quickly it goes away in a couple months, where the wildfires will be here, but there's gonna be another issue that comes up. I just share that because that's an important piece for us. The wildfires are something for us to think about. We have some areas in the Talbert and Fairview Park, where we have wild and urban interface. In the big scheme of things, not considered a very high fire hazard severity zone. And right now there's fire maps that are being put in place by the state that we anticipate that statewide to identify. There's really 3 categories: very high fire hazard severity zones, high fire hazard severity zones, and then moderate. And so the state is coming back and they evaluate, they identify those specific areas. They're coming back with those maps, and those will have implications to the cities and the counties and the residents that live in those areas in terms of what the requirements are going to be. So those maps were supposed to be out here in the past couple of weeks due to the fires, and wisely so, they've been pushed out. So we anticipate this to be anticipated probably in the next few months. But again, those will have impacts on all the jurisdictions. And what that means effectively is, can we build in those areas? And if we build, what are going to be the requirements when we build in those areas? And that's really what it comes down to. In terms of the Palisades incident, there's going to be a lot, there's already a lot talked about, and the Ethan fires. For us, as professionals, we know there are a lot of things that were done right. There's a lot of things that we're looking at, maybe what was done right or wrong. We really need to wait until after they finish the assessment of it and do a full after action report. I know everyone wants answers right now, but one thing I can tell you, some of the most challenging situations that the Palisades fire had, in addition to the extraordinary wind event itself, is evacuation and notifications, making sure that early notifications are made, decisions are made to evacuate people out. And then those specific areas, do you have effective evacuation routes? I compare the Palisades similar to Laguna Beach, where I was, because there are a number of very limited ways to get in and out of the city. And after the Laguna Beach fires in the 90s, there was a lot of devastation from those fires. There's still some houses that have not been rebuilt, by the way, for Laguna fires. But one thing they did was critically look at what we could have done better and work to correct that, which they did. They enhanced their water system capacity. They inputted different pumps throughout the city so they could isolate different areas. The infrastructure itself, the planning purpose or planning methods for evacuation, and then the notifications to the community. Technology has helped with that as well, but the communications are so extremely important. And then you talk about everyone in this room and as I look in our city, how incredibly important that piece is, from the elected officials being able to be out there and have real-time information, to the schools, which for us is a target hazard, and we've got a great relationship, and it's very important. We were talking with Dr. Smith before the meeting. making the decision to make calls of, hey, we're in shelter in place for kids at schools because of the smoke in the air. We're gonna cancel school. Making that decision, those are tough decisions you need to make. Having a tournament during the Palisades fire that's up in Santa Barbara for the sports team and making the call that, hey, we're not gonna send school resources, and then having parents, get on your back because, your risk is not gonna go. You gotta make those critical decisions, and again, it comes down to relationships and making sure that you're true with what you're doing. You don't wanna pull the trigger too quick on calling for an evacuation or shutting down the school, so you've gotta be thoughtful in how you do that. So, again, we're gonna be going throughout the city and, conducting some town hall meetings in different targeted areas. And we're gonna be working with schools, we're gonna be working with, bilingual, we wanna make sure that all the groups. But use it as a platform for us as more emergency preparedness. So as you walk away today, we provided you with, one sheet of paper that just talks about what are the means of communication. And this includes not only where you live, but also where you work, you can sign up for. Emergency alerting system, we all know, we'll hear on the radio and the TV. Really, that's just a passive method an effort to notify. I mean, there's so many different means. We know that not everyone's attached to social media, but social media is one out that we utilize on 3 or 4 different fronts. Actually, next door is one of the most effective ways. In the city, for us, Nixle is something that we utilize through our city and police department. And that's Nixle, something you can sign up for, and that's on here. And those are more intended for different daily events, messaging of a particular incident in a particular area of town to notify. And then Alert OC is really one that is extremely important, and that's something that we can all sign up for. And you should do it not only when you sign up by putting in your zip code, but that's important not only when you're where you live, but also where you work, and then if you have someone in school, so you get those notifications. For me, obviously, I'm tied in with fire, but even on a personal level, I have notifications from all the surrounding cities, and that's helpful. I actually have notifications all the way to Santa Barbara. But that's an important piece of what can you do, what can you take away. So we're gonna continue to push out information and share that information to make sure that everyone has it, because that messaging is extremely important. There's more, there's a lot of other things you can do. For example, we go through a code adoption process every 3 years. Building code, fire code, and this year is that code adoption process. Within the California building code, specifically section 7, chapter 7A, it talks about what you do for hardening of structures and certain requirements. Generally, it's really focused on the very high fire hazard severity zones, but for all in every area, it's next to, adjacent to, or even the moderate fire hazard severity zones. It talks about the things you can do to harden your structure, everything from Class A combustible roofs, really gets into non-combustible construction features in the house, making sure you have a 0 zone around your house, and then a 100-foot buffer, depending where you're at. Obviously, if you're in an area that doesn't have it, but if you've got solar, and we have them in the city, every city does, you've got some structures that have shingle roofs, wood siding, and a lot of times the way the fires happen that we're seeing, it's not necessarily a direct flame front. We're talking about embers that are flying up to 1-2 miles in the heavy winds that we saw. And you get 1 or 2 of those that landed in either on the framework of the structure in some vegetation, and they slowly make their way in, or they hit an attic vent that's not covered. They land up in between the shingles, and over a period of time, they light up. That's why if you have resources, which we call structure protection, a lot of times you can navigate and put out those fires very quickly, but there's so many. And in the case of Palisades, you have that one event that's so extraordinary. It's a conflagration, really, is what it comes down to. So you're trying to basically attack the best areas you can with the primary focus always is on life protection. And that gets back to making sure that we have sound evacuation routes. We've got the targeted communities, and I talked about schools, which we've got that relationship with the elderly communities. And again, making sure that those notifications are out, making sure that we have the resources to get those folks evacuated. So we're going to be taking a deeper dive into what we can do better. We feel like we're in a very good spot, but again, you can never have every gap closed up. We have a very robust mutual aid system here in the state of California. So as people ask, hey, do you have crews up on the fire? We absolutely did. We had 2 crews as part of an Orange County strike team makeup. It's every day, it's preset of resources throughout Orange County, of the 34 cities, the 9 municipal city departments. and then the Orange County Fire, we partner every day when that happens, as these events come, we actually now have pre-positioning resources that we put out. And so prior to this event happening, we put out resources in strategic locations throughout the state, in this case, Southern California. There wasn't anything up north, so we received resources from Northern California. And that helps when you have some fire that breaks, to get under the school, you can get it as hard and fast as you can. And so when these fires hit, we have resources that were on pre-positioning assignments, the fires broke out, we sent that pre-positioning strike team up to Los Angeles. So we had resources on the Palisades fire, the Eden fire, and then a couple of the other fires that broke out there, third resource, we brought those back. Our resources are back in quarters now. They came back over the weekend, staff for just under 2 weeks, being out on the fire lines. And we now have a resource that is out in a pre-positioning assignment that has been out since Monday. And they responded to probably about half a dozen small fires from San Clemente out to Bonsall. And I'd say probably about a handful out on 73 freeway, box trucks fires, and things like that. But again, just additional resources. So being proactive is something we work very hard on at the state level. And I'll be quite honest, we did a lot of lobbying for the past 10 years with the governor, and back to Governor Brown and the Governor Newsom. It took a lot of a push to actually be a line item in the budget for $25 million that now has, locked itself in. And that was really the fire service working closely with our elected officials and the legislature to get that in. And so that's a proactive approach, and that's what we really need to do, is those proactive approaches that make good sense. And again, not just wildfires, we're gonna get into rains, we're gonna get into mudslides, and obviously where we're at now, earthquakes is another one. So again, we're gonna take this opportunity in time to leverage this for emergency preparedness. And anything we can do to help partner with all the groups in here, because it is a partnership, it's not one entity that's doing this. But I know the city is committed to it, and we are as both the police and fire department, my partners in blue, do a great job. But something I haven't heard about, but it's there, but we know the terrorist threat. Well, I get on a weekly basis, different types of domestic and international terrorist threats in different areas that are impacting the city on a daily basis, the county on a daily basis, cybersecurity is a thing. So again, things go off the radar, but from a public safety standpoint, we're just making sure that we're on top of all. So with that, in the interest of time, like I said, I'll leave you with this, there'll be more to come. Paul's had a great presentation, he's gonna talk about the water infrastructure, but I am open to any questions, and afterwards as well, I'll be more than happy. But before I turn it over to Paul, I do want to turn it over to our mayor and city council members to see if they have anything else they'd like to add.
He's a Hall of Fame fire chief, you can only see why. We're very, very proud of the work that you do in the department and the PD as well. And, through the budget, we're committed to do whatever we can to support you. And, as the chief said, we are gonna go out and we're gonna do town hall meetings and then, talking to the chief about that and what that looks like, and also to expand what we have on this one sheet, where we have every single, so fire protection, public safety, they're at the heart of it, but it's the responsibility each homeowner have to make sure that their place is not only safe, but they're prepared to have to evacuate. It was, from my perspective, although it was terrible that any lives were lost, when you consider the magnitude of fires, it was amazing that they were able to evacuate all those folks safely. And so we want to be in a position or even a better position to do that. Not, like I said, not just with the city, not just as the fire department, the police department, but each individual member of our city. And also the other thing too is I was working sorry, it was last week I was in Washington, I was in Washington DC. Of course, this was the topic at the mayor's conference. This was the topic that everybody was talking about throughout the entire country. And I spent a lot of time with Alex Renagi, the Laguna Beach mayor, and Joe Stapleton, the Newport Beach mayor, and they're working collectively on their water, their water supply. So they're working on collaborating on the well in Fountain Valley. So here you got Fountain Valley, Laguna Beach, Newport Beach, all working together. I mean, sometimes I call Costa Mesa the Tennessee of cities, because because we have 5 cities that put arrest. You know, 8 cities were states were Tennessee, 8. Yes, but we have to collaborate with our neighbors, we have to collaborate on a regional basis, this is a regional and statewide issue, so we're committed to doing what we can to help our neighbors, but most importantly, our responsibilities are veterans and getting them prepared for any type of disaster, like the chief said, whether it be a earthquake or wildfire, storm, whatever it is, so thanks, chief. We're very lucky to have Chief Lawrence and Chief Stefano and their great teams.
Yeah, I'll just add in a specific aspect that's been touched on, where we have total control of our own departments, our own resources, but really leading into the community preparedness. What to do, every time I create a vote, I end up beating on myself, so I don't have. But, like making sure every individual is prepared and that we've got plans for, as the chief mentioned, people who have limited mobility or lesser access to communication. So, anything I ask for everyone here is for help in getting the word out, all of the preparedness, communications, information when we do have the town halls. And then just, coordination on trying to maximize the reach of people in our community who do have the information that they're going to need in that kind of stuff. And so I'm looking forward to that. I think it's going to be an opportunity to not just improve preparedness overall, but really bring our community together in pleasant ways.
Carlos, are you getting that to our comms team so we can push out community opportunities like the beach jar and other avenues?
I think that's the action. We want to make sure that our teams that are putting the events together and information together, getting it to all of your.
Yeah, we'll also do that.
Yeah, so even, when we have a time schedule, to come out and inserts, with them.
There we go. Yeah, kudos, to kind of pair everybody else was amazing. The new guy coming in and getting plugged into, public service and say, I was blown away and impressed with all you were dealing with up there in Palisades, States and the guys who still find the time to keep us very well informed of everything our resources were doing. So I was impressed by that, but, just to pivot on one thing, I think you probably know the answer. I think Governor Stevens commented on. So we have the mutual aid obligation services, and I'm concerned I've heard from a number of the neighbors in the city. We want to be good neighbors, and obviously, in our time of need, we expect them to come and assist us. But could you comment on how well staffed our own resources are when these events happen at the stage? And you guys, do you feel, what's your assessment for during this perfect real event where we were at a real drain on our resources? Do you feel we were adequate with staff? Winds were hitting our communities as well, and the fire events were a concern for our neighbors as well. How do you feel we were?
Yeah, no, that's a great question, and quite honestly, the short answer is yes. So what we do is when we put resources out, we backfill, and so when we talk about sending resources out to folks that are on the front lines, there's also impacts to the department itself. So we bring folks back in, so folks are working extra shifts, and we make sure that we don't have any gaps. And there are situations where we're very tight in Orange County. We're known for being very tight community within the fire service. And during my tenure in the Orange County Fire Service, there are times where emotions overtake, and there's some jurisdictions that want to send. We're going to send everyone, and there comes a time and place for that. Particularly if something in Orange County is happening, we'll launch our entire city, keeping some resources back. So we were absolutely fine. There are some agencies that don't have all that foresight, and afterwards we come back and we talk about that, and I just Orange County throughout. But that's an important piece to make sure you have the station backfill. And there's a period of time, for example, in Los Angeles, when it's your community for us, we're going to dump our resources, we'll get neighborhood resources, and that's why the National Mutual Aid Program is so important. If we just utilize the immediate resources, you'd have cities next to us that would be empty, and that's not the intent other than the immediate needs. So we backfill the resources. countywide, that's why you're seeing resources come from up north, and it's the same thing. Your point, we share resources, we'll put them out. So there wasn't a time during these last, fires that we weren't fully staffed. In fact, what we do is we have staff. And so with the 6 stations of coverage that we have, we actually bring in an additional resource, which is in addition to the resources that we get sent out, and in addition to the resources we put on a pre-positioning assignment. So for us, we're trying to get ahead of the curve, be proactive with it. So appreciate the question.
Before we go to base water,
Hold on one second, I just wanna say something. So what the chief just said, I'm sorry.
no.
What the chief just said is, you know, when you think about it, just in terms of real terms, you know, we got a really good relationship with the fire department and firefighters association. And what that means in real terms is for 2 weeks, you have a lot of families who don't see their loved ones. And so if you see a firefighter out there, at the grocery store, or whatever they're doing, or getting a taco, or whatever they're doing, just take some time to thank you and think of the parents.
And I know we're gonna wrap this up, but I just want to say on that, we are extremely thankful for the feedback and gratitude that we receive. But I also want to make it very clear too, is, we get paid very well for something we love to do, so, I'm very grateful to the families, there's no question that support the families, so we try to wrap our arms around it. I also want to make that piece clear too, that, it is something we do, it is something we love to do, we're very appreciative of the gratitude it's given. I do think there are some lines that probably, should be talked about moving forward, and that's a different discussion. I just heard stories of people giving additional money or gift cards to firefighters, that's not what should be done. All the resources, in my opinion, should be going to the people whose houses were impacted.
Amen.
So, that's all, thank you.
This, Mike, thank you very much for holding here. This was something, I don't know how many of you have seen the video, I'm sure probably most of you, the Palisades fire where there was the McDonald's and they had the blowtorch also, there was a palm sitting there just blowing. Well, it was like literally like a giant blowtorch. So palm's usually tall and it blows off these chunky, durable, burning embers that fly a long way and can set fires to oleaginous material. Extremely dangerous fire hazards. As I drive throughout our city of Costa Mesa, we have blocked all atrociously poorly maintained homes just ready to burn. And we have a landscape maintenance ordinance. And I think an emphasis, perhaps some communication from the city regarding maintaining palms. Because personally, in my neighborhood, there's an next door neighbor who absolutely refuses to do anything with their 3 palm trees. Often it's this classic thing, 3 tall palms planted in a cluster. And at the top, they literally do nothing to maintain them. So what maintains them is the wind. And every time we get a Santa Ana wind, we get dozens of very large heavy palm fronds that fall from 50 to 60 feet in the air and on cars. Impact my property, we have to collect them up, dump them on their property. And it's a pain, but it's one of these things that is not only a pain just from the falling palm fronds that could hurt somebody or whatever. It's a literal blowtorch of fire spreading disaster. And the only thing that doesn't burn on the palm easily are the green new shoots. So if you're not maintaining your palm, please start, and maybe we could just have just a simple emphasis, something that could be done. Because not only are they, besides a tremendous fire hazard, they're also harbor vermin, and it's a real issue. Just thank you.
And don't put your palm fronds in your green or in.
Exactly, yes.
According to Fred, you put them in your neighbor's yard.
Well, it's very, so it's their palm, so.
I'm a big palm tree guy, and I used to be able to trim them, but now they're so damn tall, there's no way in the world that you have to pay to have it done. How many of us would pay to go hear Chief Stefano talk?
Yeah.
You're all right. Although I'm a little harsh to the cops, one of my family, we're very proud of you. Just a quick thing on fires, we had at our last study session, a conversation about trash truck fires. Okay, and they're becoming more and more prevalent because of what's going into the trash truck, the refuse trucks. Batteries. And it's not the batteries you would think that are causing the fires. It's the little round guys.
Button batteries.
The button batteries. They have lithium in them. And if there's a trash truck fire, that truck has to stop and dump its entire load to be extinguished. They have to do that. Well, the point I wanted to make is our hauler, CR&R, one of their engineers or the owner of the company came up with a system of extinguishment inside the truck, inside the bin where the refuse goes, and it's a sprinkler. So as soon as they sense a fire, they can turn sprinklers on inside their trucks. And so if you guys negotiate with your commercial haulers, tell them to put sprinklers in. All right, Paul, you're up. Next water.
Yeah, thank you very much. Great talk, from the chief. And, very easy to work with, Dan and his whole group. We have a great relationship. And, our job is to, do our job so that they can do their job. And, it's been great working with you guys, throughout the years on very exciting. So this is talk about fire preparedness, but really kind of emergency preparedness for any kind of disaster that might happen. And really our hearts, I think everybody's went out to our neighbors in Los Angeles County with Palisade fires and all the people that were impacted. I think many people have relatives or friends who were impacted by that. My daughter was on the edge of a evacuation area, so she decided to, her and her roommate come down to the Hotel Schoenberger and spend a week with us, bringing all the dirty laundry with her. She thought that was the one thing she grabbed to go in. Yeah, I mean, it's really been tragic on many levels, and just everybody's lives who've been impacted. It's a tough thing, and we're agencies who are responsible to make sure that our public is safe and our staff is safe. And it's a very, very serious thing that, maybe you can lose track of because it doesn't happen every year, but it's very, very important. So these first few slides are just kind of an intro that, we've had these wildfires burning. And then the next slide, it's very tragic and here's the worst that can happen. We've all taken it very, very seriously. So at Mesa Water, our board gets together twice a year to strategic planning. They've come up with a list of core values. And I was looking at that, our very first core value is the health and safety of public and our staff. And Director Bosmiller has been one of the big leaders in, we're not where people think of a water district as, residential water and commercial industrial water, but we're also supplying fire protection also, our part to help the fire department and their very critical job. So, when I think of the safety of our public, in my mind, I always just get an image of a fire hydrant because that is where we have our role. And, excuse me, and our role is really to have the facilities available, to have an abundant water supply available, and to maintain all of that so that it's ready. So
How old is that?
this picture,
Right in the middle.
the one in the middle, I'm not sure how old that is. Is that your house? Oh, yeah.
The kid on the left there is my little brother.
Oh.
He's retired.
Related to Shorty.
That's right.
Sorry for the interruption.
That's a picture of them out there turning our mainline valves, making sure that if we need to shut off a line in case of a break or anything, it can happen. And then we have 9 wells, 3 reservoirs, a treatment plant, and about 90% of that, those facilities have backup systems. So, power to the facilities are very important. We either have main powers, either from Edison or SoCal Gas. And then we have backup systems. That's our generator at well 7 on the left. That's a generator at well 12 on the right. Those are, we do a hard shut off of the main power and make sure these kick on every quarter. So it's, our power's ready, our backup power's ready. So, we need to be ready when that all happens. So for our infrastructure, we have 2 emergency operations center. The bottom one is at our headquarters and the top one is at our treatment plant, which is the Mesa Water Reliability Facility, or the MRF as we call it. Within let's see if you can go back one. Within the city, we have 3,383 fire hydrants. And each one of those gets visited every year by one of our crews, in which we test the hydrants, we check out the valves and the whole system. Every year, there are probably 20 to 30 hydrants that need to be replaced, so we will replace them. And so, anytime a fire personnel goes to use one of those hydrants, they have been looked at within the past year to make sure that they're operational. So that's good. And we also have some, 317 miles of pipeline, which is, probably we have 317 miles of street. And those 2 big lines, the one from the right, the orange yellowish one, is a connection to the Metropolitan Water District of Southern California. So that's a new source of water that comes in. And that green one, it comes from basically where our groundwater well field is. That's a huge 30-inch line that brings water down to the south and to our 2 reservoirs in the south to make sure that, all parts of the city have good water and good pressure. And then the next, and then our board has asked us to make sure that we have an abundance of local water. And so those are our wells. We have 9 wells. And they're all located in kind of the northern part because that's where the good groundwater is. And so that's where our wells are. And we have 3 reservoirs. Our 2 largest are in the south part of the city, and those have a little more than 30 million gallons of water supply. Those are our connections to Metropolitan Water District. So kind of in the middle of the city, we've got the big connections to Metropolitan Water District. And then they're smattered on 3 sides of it. They're interconnections with our neighboring agencies, Santa Ana, Irvine, Newport Beach, and there's a lot of mutual aid agreements and operations that we have with them. So with all of this, we are blessed with a very flat city. We're 1 pressure zone, and that's kind of a problem in some of these mountainous areas because maybe they have a big system, but then they need to pump up to a tank to serve that neighborhood, and then maybe that tank pumps up to another tank to serve the high neighborhood. And each one of those, are potential failure spots and have their own limitation. In our community, we're 1 big zone, and everything goes in and helps keep the pressures up. And from this, you can see we've got the ability to flood the area with water from all different sides and locations. So we're well prepared. And this year, if you look at kind of the aggregate supply that we have, in the lower right is the average use for the city of Costa Mesa, basically the Mesa Water Service Area. And then those bottom 2 on the left are really all that we ever use. Those are our local wells and then, our water treatment facility in Green, the Murph, which are 2 additional wells. So our board has had a goal of being 100% local. And in 2012, we achieved that. So since 2012, even if the hottest day or the biggest fire or whatever, we just need to use those 2 sources on the bottom left. We also have connections to Metropolitan Water District import water, and you saw those connections. And those can be turned on very readily to bring in additional water that's a little bit more expensive than our local water. And then the emergency connection. So those 4 supplies are there and they're continuous. So we could, theoretically flood the community with 130 million gallons every day, kind of forever if we needed to. What this doesn't show is that the 32 million gallons of water that we have stored in those 3 storage reservoirs. So, yeah, so it's just that stored water is 2 days of demand, and then we have all this here that we could add. So we truly have an abundance of water supply and some, generously sized facilities that are maintained pretty well. So that's kind of our deal. And then I just wanted to show, just kind of go through one dramatic fire that when I was general manager. But before I get into this, we're also terrain blessed that we don't have the big hills like Laguna do, right? It does. And maybe Fairview Park is probably the biggest kind of open space that we have, which is pretty flat. In my neighborhood, I live in the Upper Birds, which is abuts the upper part of Fairview Park. And I know that I believe it's the city that every year kind of mows that entire area down. And you always do it right before the 4th of July fireworks, which is great and smart. And so, there's like brush management up against that neighborhood, which is fantastic. And then if you harden your house and then you have an abundance of water supply, then, you're feeling like you've done what you can with it. But this fire here was with our service area covers Costa Mesa. We in the west side, we kind of extend a couple of streets into the city of Newport also. And one of the first streets outside of Costa Mesa, which is in our service area, is in Newport Beach, Production Place, it's called. And it's kind of a commercial industrial area. And there was this huge fire in November of 2016. Times go by fast, right? And so we did a little wrap up on this, and I'll just read from our board member that said on November 2015, firefighters and emergency response personnel from the city of Newport Beach responded to a structural fire at a storage facility in the 800 block of Production Place. Mutual aid was received from 3 additional cities: Costa Mesa, first group they called, Huntington Beach, and Fountain Valley. So this was a 4-alarm fire. They all helped battle the fire, which included immense heat, flames, smokes, explosions, and downed power lines. Our Mesa Water provided an uninterrupted supply of water to help fight the fire, which took the firefighters about 3 hours to control and 40 hours to completely extinguish. The massive structure fire injured 3 people, including a firefighter, destroyed 80 outdoor storage units, and consumed boats, vehicles, and other personal property. And this was an item to recognize and thank the firefighters from each one of those communities. So they all work really well together, and we work well together. I might have another slide or so on this. If we could just go forward one. Yep, so we've got a ton of news. And the next slide, I think kind of shows our response. If we could go forward one more slide. So, you know, our system runs on pressure, and so this is that line, that squiggly line, the 60 on the left, that, you know, that's the pressure, the pounds per square inch. And throughout the, you know, about a half day length of that, and you can see our system runs on pressure, it's cruising along at 60 pounds, all of a sudden, the bunch of fire hydrants are open. The pressure trends down to 55, in which automatically our system recognizes that additional pumps are turned on, the pressure is brought up, and then during the whole event, we, you know, basically kept solid pressure the whole time for the firefighters. So that was our kind of ceremony saying thank you guys very much. You know, that's kind of what we do. We're very proud of that. People think of us as supplying their faucets with water, but we've had a lot of calls like, do our fire hydrants have water? And I'm like, yes, our fire hydrants have. And there's this golden fire hydrant. There's a golden fire hydrant in front of making station number 1. Yes. So that's kind of what we do to help out, and you know, people are asking, you know, if we're prepared, and I mean, you know, want to keep things up and running as well as possible, and glad to do our part.
Thanks all for your Dr. Smith, or Krista, which of you?
I'll Dr. Smith.
But the trustees put these on, I think the question with immigration is, you know, what are the opportunities for us to do any kind of joint activity where, or the invitation to you, if the city has the, you know, interest in using sites or whatever, we can help you with that. We're focusing on making sure that our commitment is every student is seen, heard, supported, and safe. So we're gonna keep our kids safe, follow up, but the city's got to do their to do, just let us know. I know that Arlo's communication with yeah, it's just the maybe it's that you want to add.
I think that we need sharing the resources and mayor and some of the city council, which is I think the resource that is just that it's like families and friends, having desire to see what is available. Or guided.
Got it on our website as well, and if there are resources the city has, they want to make parents aware of. We're gonna have resource tables in every office, so just make sure we get it.
Well, thank you. So, yeah, this is obviously an important and emerging issue. Just for everybody to know, we're gonna have a closed session, discussion on this on Tuesday. Something that comes out of that with the council, the police department, city, Department of Justice, and as executive orders that have been signed in the last 4 or 5 days that we need to get on top of and figure out how it affects our community. I'm sure you all know, you know, 30 demographic is 36% of Costa Mesa residents. You know, that's 40,000 people. You know, out of these mayor's conference, there's a lot of mayors that have 40,000 people in their entire city. So there's a lot of people that could be impacted by some of these actions that are happening in Washington, D.C. We're on top of it, we're talking about it. You know, we're committed to be do things legally, of course, but also, you know, depending on how it breaks, we just don't know. But also to keep the humanitarian aspect to it. You know, the mayor of Denver, one thing he said, he's on top of a pretty amazing guy, and like John said, but he went down and he said, you know, you know, parent drops their children off at school, and then the kids are waiting for the parents pick it up. Or with some of the changes in safe harbors that have happened, it could be reversed, where you drop your child off at school, but pick them up, and they didn't pick up. but, you know, I don't want to over or underreact to this. And so we're gonna be focused on really talking about a strategy. We're appropriate within public and we're appropriate within confidential, but we definitely are part of the school district and all the other agencies. Thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate that. People might assume otherwise. We don't collect data on immigration status. It's not one of the data points that we have. So all of our students are all our students. And when I say seen, heard, supported, and safe, we're also really focusing on mental health supports. You know that, students are stressed about lots of things, right? Coming out of the pandemic in particular. And this is one more stress for our students. And so we have, we're blessed in this district. We have great leadership by our board. They approved an element for every single elementary school. One of the only districts I know in the state that has that resource besides our psychologists and the support staff. So they're paying attention and providing the support for students and their mental health regarding this. Yeah, we'll stay on top of it and let us know what we can do to support these together.
Thanks.
Yeah, one of the things we've been talking about is, and you've seen this in the last thing that said, is that with the elevated threat, there's a tendency among at-risk community members to be less likely to reach out to our police department in case of a real dangerous situation, or less likely to reach out to resources in general. So in addition to the direct threats that kids lose their parents or parents lose their kids, we really are thinking about how to maintain the trust and connection across the community that the resources we have, especially our public safety departments. This creates an opportunity for those populations to become more vulnerable to other situations as well. So we need to make sure we have a really clear line of communication, so we're aware of Cecilia, tell you what the right kind of contact should be, just like awareness of what you're hearing from kids, so we can be helpful, and then we can get resources to you.
Yeah, Lori and I communicate regularly and stay in contact about, hey, what are you hearing? Let's just eyes wide open, right? As we serve and protect our community. One of the resources that Trustee Anderson brought to my attention is OIRA, the Office of Immigration and Refugee Affairs, and it's associated with the Orange County Board of Supervisors. It's nonpartisan. A lot of great resources there, and they are the experts and endorsed by both sides of the aisle, if you will. And so we're really going to help promote the work that they're doing as a resource in our community, again, within the law. So, support for fire victims. I would just say there's an event in Newport Beach. They're welcoming families to Newport. That's this Saturday, 9 to 11. We'll be there with some school materials. We have about 22 students at Last County that have enrolled in our district, displaced by those horrible fires. If there's anything we want to do in Costa Mesa side, we're able to do that also. I don't believe that we had in Costa Mesa yet, they're all Newport Beach.
They're all Newport Beach. Yeah.
But something for us to be aware of. We are working as the county superintendent's group collaboratively to support the districts ravaged by fires. So not doing individual campaigns, really working together to say, what do you need actually? And how can we best serve you? Books is one of the requests right now, because some of them were destroyed, right? But we do have school sites that are doing, clothing drives and things like that. And they're working with community agencies like the YMCA, Rose Club, and others, because the kids want to do stuff that we feel like they're helping, which is awesome. So we're doing those, and then as a group, we're working to support the districts and anything we want to do together. As a city, just let us know.
Just a quick question on the children that are students coming in, is it more elementary, or is it high school, or is it just a straight blend?
And it's the blend, so it's that I'm aware of, and
It's been mostly elementary age students. There are secondary students but it is a one, it's their families.
The day has allowed folks to automatically enroll. They don't get a discount for the year. And there's no guarantee that they can go to school next year. They get 1 year, you could be here, no discount next year. Let's see how it goes with the lottery. Just so you know, in case you're wondering, we welcome all students, we don't charge. So share that, you're sure.
No, like you, there you go.
Yeah, it just occurred to me when I was sitting here listening to this exchange, some of the impacted communities that we're talking about being displaced in Maine. Has there been any discussion, and there used to be a kind of a polarizing issue, but remote schooling, I mean, the districts that they were from, they have the displaced teachers, the displaced everything, to re-engage, to get back classes or whatever. Remote schooling, is that how you consider that option?
No, absolutely, and they're working through that in the school districts. You'll remember probably some years ago, Paradise Unified, the entire town of Paradise was destroyed. And they worked remotely for years. I found box stores in Chico that had been vacated, big box stores, and they did some schooling there, online schooling, and so they're looking at those. And Socorro was in Northern California when those kinds of things happened, where they'll speak to specifically, but absolutely that's an option for them. You know, we have very, very nice living accommodations in both communities. It's not cheap to live here. It's tough for folks to move into our communities. And yet some of those communities have great resources. So we're seeing them come and might even expect them to stay. But for those who can't, the school district's working through virtual opportunities, setting up, you know, make a school be well. I don't know that experience.
Yeah, and I think it's on a district by district basis and how many of their buildings were actually destroyed by the fires. And so Pasadena, for example, just put out a plan last week about how they're going to re-enter students into the schools. And part of it is relocating them in open spaces and other facilities that weren't burned. I think everybody post-pandemic, the last thing people want to do is go remote. So they're looking for options while also allowing it, knowing how the range of devastation to families is on a continuum. And so understanding that, but I think all options are on the table, especially for the ones where the facilities themselves have been ravaged.
I think Cal State's charter high school is already online, starting this week. As an offer, but to your point, we'll gradually find that maybe a blended.
Well, for the mental health concerns for the students, the return to normal is a high priority. So the faster you can get back to something in class, normal routine, the better it'll be for students and families. But it's a long, difficult road for many of them.
One thing we're gonna have on our, I'd say we're gonna have a special meeting on Tuesday. I'm having an agenda, eliminating our short-term rental ban for people that are LA fire victims. And I think we'll see if that passes the city council, especially, well, but I don't know if you never know. But we're looking at the city for ways, you know, large and small, to make the city welcome to people that are displaced. And it's a good place to come. It's not cheap, and unfortunately, there's not a lot of vacancies. But that's one way to address the vacancies. And our travel Costa Mesa and our hoteliers were really good. They provided discounts to people. And David, who's here, Chamber of Commerce, the business community has been really good. Sagerstrom, as you may have read, donated $1 million to various charities that are helping fire victims. So it's a generous community, and so we want to do whatever we can. So as you see things or have ideas, contact me, contact Carlos, contact Mike, Lori Ann, the city staff, whoever. We're looking for ways to make the city, where possible, more welcoming and more supportive to our, you know, the people in LA County, or one of my best friends lost his house, probably being that. You know, I was born in Pasadena. My mother would have been evacuated if she was alive during the fire, so he has home to me personally, and I'm sure, you know, all of you have those stories, so whatever we can do, either officially or unofficially, we're here to do it, so it's all about ideas, exploring possibilities. It starts with an idea, we'll escalate it, elevate it, if we can develop it, take it first.
Yeah. Awesome.
If you could send us the list. If you could send us the list of the schools that are organizing events, that of the year that students are doing that, there's a lot of people in the community who are looking for, how to be helpful. And so sending them to their local schools to participate in that drive, I think is really positive. So we can amplify, to get the list of where schools it goes to that, so we can amplify that.
Thanks. The number 8, I would do it as a service speaking to it. Trustee Anderson has been a big advocate for this. In fact, when our PIO met with to get a quote, it made the PIO cry. I said for good reasons, because it was an inspiring story. So I'll let her maybe speak to this, and then Support Shield has been the staffer for me that's really led the efforts with the city and other agencies. So.
Well, in the course of my life, of being born and raised in Costa Mesa, my first job was at Hillcrest, as a lifeguard, and the only child that I ever had to save was a 6th grader that walked over from Kellybrook, who we did a swim test, but she was tall and she cheated, jumped off the diving board and went straight down. And so it's something that's always been on my mind, like how many kids in our community can't swim. And the more that I talk to people, it's a lot of the kids that want to say that can't swim. And it's particularly concerning for our kids from Whittier, that go to Edmonton and Herbert, which everything at the school is connected to water. Birthday parties to the beach, we love the pool parties. And so to me, it's a big area of segregation that I think it's an essential life goal to learn how to swim. And if kids can't swim, they can't participate. And so we are working with our city partners, with YMCA. So yeah, I'm just really looking forward to this kind of next step. The two things to me that are essential is to learn how to read and to learn how to swim. And so we really are trying to work to have the kids across Costa Mesa to assess them, to make sure that some kids can swim, others can't though. So by the time that they promote to 7th grade, they have a basic understanding of swimming. So we're also working with the city, and so you guys are great partners, but I mean, essentially swim lessons are quite expensive. And so currently, we're really trying to work on a system where the children are getting taught, but also a lot of parents. There's an entire room of Whittier, and all of the parents were like, well, I also can't swim, like, can you be parents next? And so we created this big impact of opportunity to lean in and make sure that everyone in our community gets safe. There's so many incidences of both cities, I think, that like it creates an unsafe environment. So I'm excited for all the community partnerships. We have the Ben Carlson Foundation donated swimsuits, goggles, t-shirts for the kids. And so it's just been a really amazing effort. Today there is a swim coalition meeting. So just kind of seeing where things go. And I think the opportunity to for junior guards for students to be able to have that opportunity. There have been conversations about having a replacement for that, because I know I didn't do that when I was younger, because it's just funny. And so there are a lot of big partnership pieces that we have the opportunity to do.
So you're in good company, because for many years, the university or Harvard University had a requirement to graduate and you had to pass a swim test. So you're bringing that to our area.
Funny thing too, because about that how that came about was a donation and a requirement for the donation of the library. When I went to Harvard's fabulous library, was donated by a person whose son drowned in the Titanic, who felt that had he been able to swim, he might have at least had some chance. He can know how to swim, he told us. And so she donated the library on the condition that they had a requirement for graduation. So, amazing, I think it's still there. Pretty cool.
Gretchen passed it 5 times.
Well, I'm glad I wore my lifeguard red swimmers. You're talking about learning how to swim, I remember my dear departed father, from central Illinois. And he joined the Navy, he had a fight with my grandfather, and my dad ran off and joined the Navy. My dad didn't know how to swim, you know how they used to swim in the Navy, they threw him in the pool and said, you're either gonna make it or not, so fortunately, Shorty made it, Okay, anything, our esteemed audience, is there anything, any announcements or anything like that?
Yeah, just to tag on to that real quick about the swim lessons, so we have been working very closely with the school district and just we have an event coming up or a program coming up on April 14th. That's gonna go for 6 weeks and that's gonna focus on College Park Elementary. We're gonna be transporting about 48 students to the city's aquatics facilities so we can do some on-land training as well as some water training on how to swim. And I know you guys have a pilot program with the YMCA, which was very successful, so I think to share that with everybody. In addition to, we're also working with the soy program as well, that operates free swimming lessons to them as well.
Yeah, and a specific thanks to Brian and Jay and Michael, who have all been part of these meetings and looking for ways to bring funding and resources together. Alma has come to some meetings, and it really has been a collective community effort. The YMCA has been there, and we started with a bus from Whittier and through the after school program. I'd like to thank Christy Flores for making the details work. Finding Ben Carlson, we have a lot of staff at Harbor who are directly connected, and so we were able to make those connections to make sure that students and families, many who have never been in a pool, were able to begin the classes at the YMCA. And our next pilot will be with the city from College Park, and we're really interested in expanding it to ensure that all the students, to the trustee's point, all the students have these opportunities that begin with being able to prevent drowning, which is a leading cause of death for young children, all the way to aquatic opportunities in our community where they're plentiful and life-changing. And so being able to build that bridge all the way from drowning prevention to aquatic opportunity like scholarships, lifeguard positions, all of those things that really change the quality and opportunities in life. So we're quite excited, and it takes a village for that. So thank you.
You guys are excited about it.
And we even offer a PE class at Newport Harbor for swimming. So instead of taking your normal PE, get to high school and you don't know how to swim at that point, you can take that PE class, and there's a couple sections of those, and the teacher is always like, you know, I have probably half my classes know how to swim, and by the end of that semester they can swim. So it'd be great to also offer that at other schools as well.
And that is in the works, that the internal curriculum, and part of the plan is to help normalize being in a swimsuit at 13, so that students will take the class, because that's the other thing. There begin to be different pressures as preteens and teens. And so normalizing the entire experience, so we can have more students in the classes we're creating for, because we're, again, so fortunate that our high schools have pools. It is an asset of our community.
And we're excited because, I mean, so Pomona, a class of 30, the teacher asked 3 of them could swim. Like, it's not 50%, it's a majority of these kids will not swim. So at certain school, so it's really, the need is high.
An ask or a need for support now, it sounds like we've got things going to try to pilot that this is something that is sustain over time, right? So it's always been 10 years.
Right, to grow, and yeah, we had a vision, we saw that I'm failing to work, but to grow, yes, we'll have to think about sustainability. I mean, this, and our pilot partners, because in the model we have now at elementary school, the schools don't have the resources for, these aren't our teachers, right? It's the city's instructors, it's the city's schools, so doing all of the logistics, but we'd love to grow it as big as we could to serve as many students as we could in schools, probably 10 targeted schools that we would like to serve, and that would be an amazing opportunity for families if we could get something sustainable.
And for our students, so I mean, Newport Harbor has, and we just celebrated the, I feel like national champions again for water polo. Like, we have so many students who, and all four of our high schools that are exceptional swimmers, and so they are, A, they have to do community service, but B, they like really want to help in their community, so there's a lot of those kind of natural connections that we can make. It's more affordable to all. Nice.
The partnership with the Newport Aquatic Center almost. Another.
They do more like rowing and things like that. There's not really cool. Yeah.
But in time, we want swimmers to get there.
That's an aquatics opportunity,
Yeah.
that's kind of.
The sailing, the rowing, the guards, the water polo, the swim team. We got it out. We did our building our first pool. They did. Oh, it happened. Yeah, they are, it's one of those things, right? So they have a newer city council that realized you don't have these single public pool. We've been leaning on the schools or private places, and so that too will also help incredibly to help people get past.
So also consider Costa Mesa United, the resource, so I was just at the golf course, it was like a small tournament. Jose Diego Otto was there and he was like.
Part of the team that comes in, again, it's a village in a room, we come together. It's a lot of people very passionate about creating opportunities.
There's just be two things I was gonna add. One, I'm a 1974 graduate of the YMCA swim school. My oldest son, teaches swimming there during the summer. And my daughter, also, lifeguards there, so. Yeah. One thing I was at an event last night. It was SoCo, the OC mix. And that area is like an island. There's just so much in there that we just kind of drive by, not go by, like that, what do you go there? It was a tenant meeting. They have new management, they have new owners there. And one of the things that I found, there's two items that on the agenda was the chamber and how can they help in some areas of assistance for the fires. And you realize that this research is, we talk about there's so much that people want to do and how they channel this. So it was good. It worked in tandem perfectly because we have some businesses that do $30 billion a year in revenue. So there's some very people have resource. And it either comes from either be monetarily or even from furniture or things like that nature. So it was neat, but again, it kind of is that part of that, just getting out there and talking about where can we channel all this. There is a lot of, someone said that, and one of the silver linings from this is that we see a community stretched out from very long distances coming together to support one another, regardless of where it's at. So I just wanted to, it was really refreshing to hear that last night, but yeah, it's kind of back to that topic of earlier.
It's probably never too early to plug. In August, we do a school start kickoff, and we're always looking for donations for our own community to be able to start the school strong. From shoes to haircuts to backpacks to all of the things, bike helmets, bikes, everything that kind of makes a youth childhood strong and successful. So we'll come back with more information for that, but that also is the community, village to make that. We serve nearly 2,000 students, 2,000 families come through of our own neighbors who are, trying to start the school year strong, so.
And I think the chamber can help, it's especially shoes, we needed a lot, so Vans is right there, and we
they're right next door there.
figure out how to get them to pony up some more shoes, so if you can start that now.
Yeah.
They are a good number of ours, so.
There you go, thank you.
One other thing that's in terms of announcements, in about a month, before our next meeting, the Coast Mesa Grand Prix in that area is occurring, and that's on March 2nd. And it's amazing bike race. I was I went last year, and Andrea and Mark was there with us, and we're trying to grow it. I mean, the group is trying to grow it. It's in the Harlem Gateway area. It's something to see. So you can just go to it, look it up. Maybe there's some sponsorship opportunities or ways that you can promote it. But if you just individually want to go, it's amazing. Folks, Peloton and stuff, and see them cruising around Costa Mesa. It's exciting. So something to think about. That's March 2nd.
We have a lot of electric bikes.
No. These are the real bikes, Mike.
Old school, yeah.
The real old school bikes, like you see, you know, you see it going through, Harbor Gateway, pretty.
Yeah, sure. All right, thank you all for spending your morning with us. I wanna just real quick thank our staff for the lovely breakfast and some other districts, but we have the best staff. No offense.
I always agree when I'm here, Sandy.
All right, we'll see you all in April in the school district. Thank you all.
Oh, thank you for your presentation.
Robert could ask him. I asked him to wait, he said, I didn't know.
Thank you very much. Thank you. You're welcome. Enjoy.